Welcome to The Joy Factor, a podcast dedicated to helping you create a path to joyful living each and every day. We're sharing inspiration from real people combined with practical tools you can use to unleash the playful and joyful spirit already inside you. Now, here's your host, therapist, life coach, and yoga teacher, Julie Hansen.
Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Joy Factor podcast. It is good to be here with you today. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode, especially if you're a guy looking for a solid relationship or even just a good date. My guest is Jeffrey Platts, and he's a men's coach and authentic communication expert. He's passionate about helping men create amazing relationships with women. Jeffrey has over 20 years of personal study and transformational training, and he's led nearly 200 workshops and retreats on personal growth, dating, and communication. Jeffrey's work and writing has been featured in the Huffington Post, Washington Post, ABC News, Authentic Man Program, and the Good Men Project. He brings a rich toolbox of insights and experiences to his facilitation and integrates his adventures as a DJ, amateur stand-up comedian, salsa dancer, yoga teacher, and world traveler. I really like Jeffrey, and I've been following his work for several years now, and he just has always struck me as, a really authentic person and somebody that was passionate about helping men, and helping men become better at relationships helps women. So I hope you will enjoy the episode. All right, Jeffrey, so glad you could be here today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. It's great to have you. Thank you for inviting me on your show. Yeah.
I have to tell you, you must be enjoying the weather in California compared to, didn't you live in the DC area in the past?
I'm East Coast born and raised, was in Connecticut through high school. And then in college, I went to DC, and then I was there for 20 years. And then I moved about 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago, to LA first for the year and a half, and then since then we've moved to San Diego. So,
all right,
both are good in my opinion, weather-wise for sure.
Yeah, I'm feeling the cold
today. Yeah.
Well, let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you do with men and just give us some background on what led you down the path?
Yeah. So the work I do with guys is primarily based around relationships and dating. So basically I call it, I train men how to meet and meet amazing women and create relationships with those women in a singular sense, meaning most of the guys that come to me are monogamy minded, right? But, and the guys that have just either struggled and they've got things going on going well for them in other areas of their life, but for whatever reason, the dating relationship stuff is either it was successful for a while, but now it's kind of fizzled, or it never really has been a forte of them, and they just haven't really thrived in that area. And so they come to me, and we just dive it deep. We do, but a lot of it's inner stuff. Like how do they view life? How do they view themselves? How do they view men? How do they view women? How do they view relationships? How do they view love and sex and all these things? With the idea of transforming them and getting them really, really solid in themselves, so that they can confidently and comfortably meet, the kind of women that they want to meet, and then how to create a relationship with those women, a solid one. Because I think where a lot of times other coaching or programs fall short is they teach about how to meet and create and build attraction. That's great, but what happens if after you meet someone that you really want to build something with? And that's where I think I kind of fill in that gap and help really get them in a solid foundation.
So what do you see as kind of some of the, maybe one or two of the common obstacles that sort of run through as themes?
Yeah, with clients is that they tend to, like, emotional awareness. Like we're taught so early on as men and as boys to just stuff our emotions. Boys don't cry kind of thing, and men don't cry, and we just kind of don't have a healthy or even conscious awareness of our emotions and the role that emotions play in our life, right? And so that's a big one for my clients, and it was a big one for my own journey, to become aware of our emotions, to slow down, to not numb ourselves as best we can with porn or video games or food or sports or at this day and age politics, whatever it is that kind of just distracts. Even myself. Even yesterday, I noticed myself kind of I'm kind of feeling some uncomfortable emotion around something, and I noticed myself gravitating more towards some junk food or towards reaching for my phone to look at the latest headlines. That kind of stuff. So that's one big thing, is the emotional awareness, and that kind of ties into like presence and connection and all these, and communication and all these things. And the other thing is, I think, is just a level of self-awareness and self-direction, kind of like becoming aware of who you are and what you want and what drives you, what really makes you, and not just following the herd. And then specifically choosing what you want your life to look like. Like, what do you want to, what are you going to settle for? What are you not going to settle for? What do you want to create? How do you want to really just be the source of your own transformation and your own guidance? So those are the two biggest things, and then other things tie into that, right? Cultural ideas around men and masculinity, and that's another one too. It ties into the second piece of self-awareness. Is like, what is your version of masculinity? It doesn't have to look like Tom Brady or The Rock or any version. I think we get into this. It has to look like a certain physical type, a certain amount of facial hair, a certain line of work, that they have to do. You have to really be this financially aware. You need to know how to fix your car and all these kinds of things, which are good things to know and to do, but they don't necessarily make you a better man or more of a man.
Right. I love how you say be the source of your own transformation. And I think it's just important to kind of highlight this idea of a lot of us know what we don't want, but there just isn't as much attention spent on, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it takes, the way that I kind of try to show up online and just on Facebook and just in my own kind of teachings is leading by example, giving that permission to, like, hey, it's okay to, personal growth is cool. You know what I mean? Like, personal growth is a cool thing to get involved in. In my experience, it was overwhelmingly predominated by women, at workshops and things that I do, especially when to the spiritual / relationship communication. They tend to be that's who they gravitate more towards that. I haven't done research to know why that is, but either way, I think it's to make personal growth cool again, or cool for men and acceptable. It's a thing you do. It's kind of like, you get a personal trainer, cool. Well, you hire a life coach, you hire a coach to get some results in a certain area of your life. And so I think that's kind of, and having these spaces, whether it's a men's group or whether it's a workshop or even just joining, a conscious Facebook group, that you can kind of have conversations like this around masculinity with other men is very, very, very important. It's the conversation as a starter is the first step, I think, a lot of times.
Right. And it's just so rare to find that conversation happening. And I think that, what struck me, and I'm trying to remember, I think my friend Nando introduced me to you.
Oh, yeah. I love that guy. I love him. Yeah.
Hi,
yeah.
Nando.
I remember that specifically. Yeah. Like a while, like it was years ago. I think when I was first connecting with him on Twitter, he like tagged you in something or like introduced us or something, and then we became Facebook friends, I think.
One of the things was, when I lived in New York and I took my yoga teacher training, which was after 2002, we would do these exercises, and they were, eye gazing exercises. Mm-hmm. The practice of looking deeply into someone's eyes.
Yes.
And I remember taking that to Texas, and I would do premarital workshops, and we would have, oftentimes just a moment where we would have the couples look at one another in the eye.
Yeah.
And then I saw what you were doing.
Yeah. So I did for when I first started getting into like coaching and personal growth in a professional capacity, I've been doing personal growth since I was like 17. So over 23 years now. And I've just been, just for my own enjoyment, my own kind of being a junkie around this stuff, and then I, back in like 2009, 2010 is when I started to kind of I took this training in San Francisco around circling and authentic relating, which is a style of facilitation. And part of that also was uncovering and learning some of these practices, right, that can be done in a setting as a group. And so, yeah, one of them was an eye gazing event. And so where the premise was, speed dating without the talking, right? And you just slow it down. And I did, several of those in DC and some in Toronto as well. And then, so it just became, it was one of those things where like, it was a novel enough concept and sadly, rare enough in this day and age to be necessary, right? It's almost like kind of we need these kinds of things because we're so distracted. How many times, just go to Starbucks or Chipotle or wherever you are and see who's in line and see where they're looking. They're looking at their phone,
Right.
Myself included, right? Like we all get succumb to that just easy distraction. And so that was like an amazing thing that I kind of practiced myself in all these workshops and trainings. And I just loved it. It was very powerful and so simple. And it also very scary too, for a lot of people. And so I did that in DC and it was great. It, definitely caught fire for a while there. And I integrated into other stuff. So I kind of expanded just beyond, okay, there's more that can be done, after we gaze, right? And so that's when I started doing more authentic relating style workshops and events and whatnot. So so that's kind of how I started. Yeah.
So how do you think, this is sort of a two-parter of how do you think your work is helping men create more joy in their lives? And then how has it helped you create more joy in yours?
Yeah. So my work, I think what the main thing around creating the joy for them is just putting it on the menu, putting the tools and the skills and the awareness of how to create connection with not just women, but like with anybody, right? Or with their family. One of my clients had transformed his relationship with his boss. So his boss was working as in an environmental organization, and he had his boss that was wanted to think about leaving. And then in our work together, it kind of rippled into like the work he did with transforming his relationship with women in dating capacity, also transformed his relationship with his boss. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like the possibility of joy becomes increased the more awareness you have around who you are and how you show up in the world and the possibilities of connection, right? Because I think for me, joy comes from connection with something. Right? Mm-hmm. It's either going to be connection with ourselves, connection with another person, connection with the world, with nature, with, an animal or a piece of music. The joy happens through a connection of some sort. When we're numb, when we're checked out, distracted, or just emotionally numb in whatever way, we're disconnected in some way. So I think then joy is not possible because, we could have, I'm sure I've had the experience of being in a joyful environment or a celebration, but just not feeling anything connected wise. I'm like, I feel, why am I feeling sad? I'm feeling sad because there's probably a disconnect in some way, shape or form. So I think for me, like, the work I do with men and subsequently the work I'm doing with men is actually helping women, right? Because I'm creating more the pool of men that are conscious and self-aware and action taking and have communication skills is getting bigger. And that then in turn helps women that are subsequently, approached by those men or have relationships, created by those men. So, so I think for me, it's more from that perspective of really being self-aware around connection and how to create that, how to become a connoisseur of connection, how to know when it's there, when it's not there, how to increase it when you want it to increase and feel closer to someone. So I think that's the biggest one that I would say is like to put it on the menu and giving them the tools to choose it more often and more effectively.
I love that idea of putting it on the menu. And, you come across so authentically. Like I had never spoken to you before today, but anytime, you come across my feed, like that's just sort of the consistent impression that I get from you. And that authenticity is such a gift, and I think a lot of people don't even realize, when we're talking about not being connected, people may look to therapy or to coaching or, something and think, well, I don't know what to do. I need help, but they're not. The cool part is to be able to have an authentic relationship with the clients that you work with and really model that.
Yes.
It taps into being able to counter this deep sense of isolation that so many people feel.
And I think it's kind of this, especially when we're online, like it creates that, it can create that false sense of connection. Like, oh, I'm part of a community. I'm part of this tribe, which I think it's helpful, but I think it's best. I've always viewed online as a great facilitator for offline connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like if it's not a substitute for it, it can never be. Right. It's like that movie, Her. I don't know if you've seen that with Joaquin Phoenix. And it's like kind of like, and I've had moments where like I'm kind of feeling this connection, you know, with somebody or to some people. And it's like, this is real, but like, I don't know if that makes sense. But like, there's that kind of, there's like a blessing and a curse in everything, right? There's always a pro and a con to it, and there's duality. So I've always found that you need to get offline as much as possible, but it's a great thing to use. You know, like look at Meetup. Meetup.com is a great online tool, but it's not, nobody hangs out there all the time exclusively. It's designed to have meetups offline, in person, right?
And to be able to bring things alive and to say, you know, when you can say, well, I'm going to hire a team. And I already, you know, I pay somebody to do my oil changes. I pay somebody to clean my teeth. You know, let me assemble a part of my team that is about my awareness and my emotional life to help me figure out, well, how do I not only put this on the menu, but how do I keep it there? Like, how do I really prioritize that?
Totally. Yeah.
So do you have any kind of a motivational quote or advice that you've received from someone who's taught you about living more joyfully?
Yeah, it's well, one that I love by Eckhart Tolle, which let me pull it up here. But the short version of it, I'll just share that, which just comes off the top of my head always, is that what you think the world is withholding from you, you are withholding from the world. So it's almost like this thing for me. It's always like when I'm thinking I'm being, I'm being a victim in some way, or like, I'm not getting invited to parties and I'm not, nobody's calling me back and whatnot, or, look at all these people, like they're all, cranky, or, they're judging people, and like, here I am judging people for thinking that they're judging people. Right. And so it's one of those things where like, cool, let me shift that. Let me be the source of that. Let me go first. Right. And so it's kind of like, and I always find that magic comes from that. It's like, cool, if I'm not getting invited to parties for whatever reason, if that's true or not true, objectively or subjectively, it's like, cool, let me do a party and let me invite people that I want to invite. Let me be the source of that. Say hello first. Let me be the source of let me, if I'm not feeling that I'm getting enough validation or compliments or appreciation from certain people, cool, well, have I been giving that? Am I just kind of wanting to be like a parasite and just receive validation? Or do I give it as well? What if I just gave it? Isn't that kind of pleasurable in and of itself? So it's almost like that. So I love that quote of just kind of, let me kind of be this, let me give that out. If think I'm not receiving it, cool, well, let me give it. And in the act of giving it, it's kind of embedded that you have it to give.
Yeah, that's a great quote. And just being able to put the pause button when that emotion comes up, right? Like the one that we don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And to ask a couple of questions around it.
Yeah. And to just kind of get curious of your own experience.
Yes. Okay. So what about maybe some other examples of moments where you're struggling to be joyful? What steals your joy? How do you get it back?
Yeah, good question. Typically, when, the moments when I'm like not feeling joy, if I'm only chasing joy, then I'm going to be set up for frustration, right? If I'm always, joy is the default. I need to be feeling joy all the time. It's like that's going to set myself up for failure, because life is life. It's almost like I guess the distinction I would make around this is there's a difference between choosing joy and always being joyful. Mm-hmm. So it's like I can always choose to be like same thing with positivity, right? Like I can always. It's one thing. My goal is to always be positive. Cool. Well, that's a great goal. Good luck with that. Or if my goal is to always choose positivity, then cool. That's more practical, because cool, I'm going to get knocked down, but I can always reframe and choose something positive instead. right? So I think there's where there's a balance of like, yeah, like we can choose optimism, we can choose to be joyful, we can choose a perspective that feels better than one that feels the opposite, right? It feels, frustrating or sad or whatever. And I think it's just, so for me, it's always, and one guidance that I've generally go by is like, do I feel expansion or contraction? Around this topic or around this thinking or around this thing? Do I feel an expansiveness in my heart and chest and stomach, or do I feel contracted and closed? And generally that's my guidance kind of telling me one way or the other. This is either continue following this line of thinking or this perspective, or to not do that. And so typically to go back to your question around when do I feel lack of joy is typically when I'm just on autopilot. Around a lot of times I find myself it's around technology, when I have too much technology around me, when I'm like watching too much TV or watching too much stuff online or on Facebook too much, and the screen time throughout the day it doesn't really fulfill me long term. And so I'll notice that and then decide to unplug and go into nature or just connect with Vanessa. And just one of those things where I think it's really self-awareness around this stuff is really key. And it's an energetic self-awareness, right? Being aware of the energy in your body. Because if we're all head, all thoughts, it's going to be, there's a disconnect, right? We're not going to be able to feel that difference.
So if there's somebody out there who is really thinking, wow, that sounds great, but how do I get started? What would be just the tiniest step? Even what you just said about, being more embodied, right? Like being more aware of kind of the questions of, is this, does this feel contracted or expansive?
Yeah, I like that. So the first step is, I guess the first step is obviously get clear that you want to have that happen, that you're deciding to make this an intention for you, to make this a priority. Like, I want to have a different experience of my life, and I want to move toward feeling more joy or more positive emotions that feel good to me more of the time, right? Once that decision's made, then you can start to seek out ways to do that. And so one way to really just, as best you can, is set a timer. And I would say start with a minute. Like, you use your phone or if you have a digital watch or Casio or something, that's what I use, is just set the timer for your phone and just be with yourself. Just be, notice where you are. First and foremost is the number one step of any of this, I think, is where are you? What is going on? What are the thoughts in your body, thoughts in your mind? What are the sensations in your body? What are the emotions that you're feeling? That's it. Just naming what's present and what's true. And then one way to do that is literally use the sentence, what's true? So what's true? What's true is that I'm sitting here on my meditation cushion. What's true is that I am speaking with you right now. What's true is that I'm looking out the window and I see the clouds and the trees and the palm trees, swaying. What's true is that my knees are bent and my feet are planted on the floor. And when I say what's true, to really do it in a very objective way, where it's not you can't argue with it. You couldn't come in oh, that's not true, Jeffrey. Which can come in communications and relationships, right? When, oh yeah, you're feeling angry. Well, no, I'm not. I'm actually just really tired and cranky. So to do it with yourself, so come in, you can go up to more if you want, but at least start with 1 minute. What's true? What's true right now? What is it, with the intention of just grounding yourself into the present moment experience?
Yes.
So what's
1
true?
minute. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how our listeners can find you and any special programs or offerings that you want to tell us about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. The best way is just to kind of connect with me on Facebook or Instagram. Those are the two main ones that I share on. So Facebook.com, and you go /Jeffrey Platts. So JEFFREYPLATTS. Same thing with Instagram. My name is Jeffrey Platts. You can follow me on there. And I post, pretty regularly, several times a day, on all different things around kind of these topics. Or my website, obviously, that's another one I keep forgetting. JeffreyPlatts.com. And right now I'm actually just focusing on I have some spots for some new clients. I'm looking to open up a few spots for some VIP clients, where I'm looking for a few really, really good men that are hungry to really dive into this area of their life and really master it. And so if any man that's listening to this, or if a woman that knows a man that might be interested in this, to send them my information, or just, reach out to me on Facebook or via my website, and let's see if or how I can help you and have you work with me.
And so what would someone who's interested, what would they be looking for? Would it be, or what would they be committing to? Is it sort of a program? Is it?
Yeah, it's basically, my VIP programs are 6 months, 1-to-1,
Okay.
where it's a combination of virtual, coaching and also in-person work here. So you can fly out to San Diego and you spend a day and a half with me, getting personal coaching in person. So that's where the deepest work, I think, comes from that, plus the online stuff. And we dive deep. And I find that the reason why I now do longer commitments is that I find that's when the deepest work happens. Mm-hmm. When it's like a one-off session, or it's like just 30 days, 1 month or 2 months, even, it's like, it's almost like there's some false success. What I mean by that is like you get some traction, you get some beginners kind of high from like, I'm getting some results, but then like you haven't really embodied it and sustained it in a way. So that's why like the longer duration feels like I've seen clients get way better results and more sustainable results with that. So yeah, I just love kind of really just going deep in with clients. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for chatting today. It was great to get to know you.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. Hopefully, if at least one person is served powerfully by this message, I'll be happy.
So nice to talk to Jeffrey. It's always so interesting to hear different perspectives on living more joyfully, and I love how he broke it down to a practical action that you can take just by putting aside a minute or two to just be with yourself, just noticing where you are, what your thoughts are, and maybe most importantly, what your body is communicating. It's a tiny practice of clearing space and tuning into yourself, and then asking what's true. Jeffrey called it energetic self-awareness, a great reminder to use your body as a guide. It's not all about what you're thinking and believing. It's also about how you're feeling and using all aspects of your experience to get clear on what you want. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I am starting a new segment on the Joy Factor podcast, and it's all about things that are bringing me joy. Today, I've got Blue Apron on my mind. And I have to say, I'm impressed. Blue Apron, in case you don't know, is a food delivery system where you can have meals brought to your door every week or every month, or you can pick. And the food always arrives fresh. And there's a beautiful recipe card and directions that come with it. So you're basically getting all the ingredients that you need to make a great meal. And these recipes have really captured the attention of both my daughters. And we're really enjoying working on making the meals together. And our whole family has enjoyed trying food we wouldn't otherwise try, like cod stew. Is something I would have never thought to make, but that was one of the recipes and it was delicious. My favorite meal so far, in fact. So we're ordering 2 meals a month, and it really is a perfect way to try something new and have a little fun in the process. So if you're interested in trying a meal for free, go ahead and send me a message on the Joy Factor Facebook page and I'll send you an invitation. I've only got 5 to share, so don't delay, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to The Joy Factor. For more information, visit www.thejoyfactorpodcast.com.